Hello everyone, welcome back to World of Warcraft. Today I decided that we were going to explore a few specific, unique items, specifically from Legion. Um, there are a few artifact weapons that you get in Legion that are not only very powerful, but can talk with you and whisper to you, provide commentary, unique perspectives and comments and little bits of info or lore on various certain things. And I thought, why don't we kind of explore this, where I read to you some of the quotes that people have recorded from these weapons when you take them throughout all the various, different places and aspects of Legion, and we explore some of the lore about it, especially in case there are those of you out there that perhaps never played one of these classes. Since I know that there are players out there that they only played their one character, or they only play a one or a couple of specific classes, and they don't try out all the different classes in the game, and perhaps didn't get a chance to experience some of this stuff. And this is kind of partly relevant due to what's going on in BFA with this particular weapon. So say hello to my main priest, Angeliques. She, her mog is a work in progress. But we're going to be looking at what you see here. This is the artifact weapon for the Shadow Priest spec. This is Xal'atath, the Blade of the Black Empire. Xal'atath has a mind of its own. Ignore its maddening whispers. Do not trust the lies that it spins. Take from it what you need, but always remember that the dark presence in the blade is not your ally. So Xal'atath, how do I explain this? There is a being, like some kind of entity, contained within the blade, and that's why there are times where it will actually speak with you. It'll actually whisper to you. So the quest to get this weapon is pretty great, especially how it ends and where she's like, you seem very promising. Oh, we'll do great things together. And yeah, the blade is voiced by Claudia Christensen, in case you're curious. And there are a lot of fascinating and interesting quotes that Xal'atath provides throughout the expansion, even continuing into BFA. And of course, you can be able to have this as a transmog, and it continues if you have a transmog. So here's what I was thinking. Let's read up on the lore in the book here in the World of the Conclave while we are here in the Netherlight Temple, the Priest Order Hall. And then I will read for you some of the quotes that have been recorded for this weapon. I have not, in case you're curious, that's the latest appearance I have for the weapon. I don't have the secret one from the Emerald Nightmare yet, but when I get this Priest to 120, I just haven't done that yet, but when I get to 120, I'll try and get into groups that are doing runs of Emerald Nightmare so I can get the secret appearance. But anyway, regardless, let's first read up on the lore of this weapon. That's the Discipline one, that's the Holy one. So that way you guys can get a bit of a better idea of what's going on with this weapon before I read for you some of the quotes, so perhaps you can have some better context. Xal'atath, the Blade of the Black Empire. By the way, we have a book here on the other hand, because that's a dagger, and then we have this book, which is The Secrets of the Void. The moment I touched the blade, a name was spoken in my mind. Xal'atath. I knew then that I could not destroy the dagger. Not yet. How can one defeat a power she does not understand? So, an ancient and terrible force trembles deep within Xal'atath, Blade of the Black Empire. Though this dagger can serve as a powerful tool for those who wield its shadow magic, tread cautiously. Xal'atath has a mind of its own. Ignore its maddening whispers. Do not trust the lies it spins. Take from it what you need, but always remember that the dark presence in the blade is not your ally. Xal'atath had its dark genesis in an age long before the Horde and the Alliance, an age when the legendary old gods and their black empire engulfed the world in shadow. There are many theories concerning the blade's creation. The more outlandish claim that it is all that remains of a forgotten old god who was consumed by its kin in the early days of the Black Empire. Other theories state that Xal'atath is the claw of Y'Sharaj, ripped from the old god's monstrous form, and bestowed upon its servants for use in ritual sacrifices. As unbelievable as these stories are, perhaps there is truth to them. Xal'atath pulses with the foul essence of the old gods. It is even said that the blade can grant its owner visions of the Black Empire. But all who have looked upon such horrors have lost themselves to madness. Mighty beings known as the Titan-Forged eventually defeated the Black Empire. They shackled the old gods and their minions in prisons beneath the earth. Harmony descended on Azeroth, but it was not to last. Xal'atath made sure of that. The blade remained in the world, passing from mortal hand to mortal hand, and leaving only death and chaos in its wake. One of the unfortunate souls who took up Xal'atath was a troll named Zando. The ambitious witch doctor hailed from the mighty Gurubashi tribe. His rivals had ousted him from a position of power and prestige, and Zando spent his days nursing dreams of retribution. It was a simple thing for Xal'atath to latch onto Zando's anger and twist him into a pawn. Guided by Xal'atath's whispers, Zando and a handful of loyal witch doctors sought out a strange mound of blackened stone. Troll mystics had forbidden their people from disturbing this site. But Zando ignored the taboo. He believed the mound held great power he could use to defeat his rivals. He and his followers would soon discover what the mound really was. The body of a slumbering servant of the old gods named Kithis. Kithix. Let's go with Kithix. Xal'atath urged Zando to make blood offerings to the creature. With his mind corrupted by the blade, the witch doctor did not hesitate. He dismembered some of his companions with the dagger, and then he used their blood and organs as regents to awaken the monstrosity. In a final act...
You've gathered quite the group of followers. It is fortunate they are focused on this incursion and not the true war. The scope of it might destroy your minds.
There's one of the quotes I was actually going to read to you guys later on. So she may whisper to us from time to time as we're reading this. Let's see, where was I? Yes. In a final act, Zando buried his gore-stained dagger into Kithrix's hide, and the giant rumbled to life. Zando and his followers were never seen again. Trolls would later visit the site and find only scattered bones picked clean of flesh. After Kithix is awakened, it brought the shadow of war upon Azeroth. The monstrous creature rallied other old god minions to its side and launched a campaign to grind troll civilization into dust. Unlike the trolls who had roused it, Kithix knew how to harness Xal'atath's true potential. Calling on the blade's power, the Cathrax spread pestilence among the trolls to weaken their bodies, and it bombarded them with visions of death to weaken their minds. You know, just in case she whispers again, because I think I actually turned the game sound down. Go ahead and turn it up just a bit. Just in case, so we can make sure we hear that lovely voice of hers. Let's see. Unlike the trolls who had roused it, Kithix knew how to harness Xal'atath's true potential. Calling on the blade's power, the Cathrax spread pestilence among the trolls to weaken their bodies, and it bombarded them with visions of death to weaken their minds. Though the trolls would eventually destroy Kithix and defeat its armies, Xal'atath would haunt the dreams of the war's survivors until the end of their days. Many tribes would recount legends about the Black Blade that had nearly driven them to extinction. From Chapter 4 of Modgood's Doom, concerning the day that the Dark Iron Sorceress acquired Xal'atath. Modgood embraced her clan's long history of studying arcane magic. As the wife of Sorcerer Thane Thorason, she had first pick of the Dark Iron's most powerful enchanted artifacts, yet she was never quite satisfied with the offerings on hand. Modgood would often dispatch her servants to find new relics that she could study and use as instruments in the creation of spells. One of these dwarves returned with a blade that thrummed with dark energy. Modgood was immediately taken by it. For days, she retreated into her archives to unravel the dagger's mysteries. At times, she could be seen talking to the weapon. When she later emerged, Modgood called for the dwarf who had brought the blade in order to thank him. No one could find him. No one could even remember his name or his face. It was as if he had simply vanished into thin air. From Chapter 23 of Modgood's Doom, concerning the battle between the Dark Iron clan and the Wildhammer clan in Grim Batol. War golems smashed through Grim Batol's gates, and the Dark Iron soldiers poured into the Wildhammer capital. Bitter rivals these two clans were. Neither side showed the other mercy. The Wildhammer's bravery was their greatest weapon, and Modgood sought to take that from them. Under the thunderous clash of hammer against axe, she screamed an incantation and wove her profane spellwork. She slid her enchanted dagger over her palm and let her blood spill onto the stones. Modgood's foul ritual brought Grim Batol's shadows to life. They sprang from the city's dark nooks and crannies, falling upon the Wildhammers with blades forged of night. From Chapter 27 of Modgood's Doom, recounting the final moments of the Dark Iron invasion of Grim Batol. By some feat of courage, Thane Cardros rallied his remaining Wildhammer warriors and launched a desperate counterattack against the Dark Irons. Cardros bullied through his enemies with the single-minded focus of a war golem, only coming to a stop when he found Modgood. Here, the fate of Wildhammer and Dark Iron would be decided. The sorceress unleashed her dark power on Cardros, but he pressed his attack. Then Modgood reached for her black blade, the weapon that had turned Grim Batol into a den of nightmare. It was not there. She had lost her cherished weapon, or, as some would claim, the weapon had abandoned her. With one mighty blow of his hammer, Cardros mortally wounded Modgood and secured victory for the Wildhammers. It is said that as the sorceress lay dying, she repeated one phrase over and over again. "You promised." Decades after Modgood lost Xal'atath, the blade was taken up by a human bishop named Natalie Celine. She had lived through the First War, Warcraft 1, when the Orcish horde invaded Azeroth and conquered Stormwind. Just in case there are those of you that don't know, when they refer to the First War, to a named or a numbered war, they're referring to a numbered game. So the First War is Warcraft 1, the Second War is Warcraft 2, and the Third War is Warcraft 3, just to clarify. After the war, Celine realized that to defeat the green-skinned orcs, humanity would need to study the strange powers they wielded. She closely examined their magics, and she visited battle sites where their dark arts had befouled the land. From her investigations, she learned of an otherworldly blade that the orcs had once used in their bloody rituals, a blade that held sway over the shadows themselves. Troubled that such a profane weapon could exist, Selene swore to hunt it down and destroy it in the name of the light. From The Secrets of the Void by Natalie Selene. The moment I touched the blade, a name was spoken in my mind. Xal'atath. I knew then that I could not destroy the dagger. Not yet. How can one defeat a power she does not understand? And I had much to understand. Very much indeed. Xal'atath whispered to me in waking and in dreaming. It taught me that there is more to this world than light. There is also void. In the ebb and flow between these two forces, one can find power and knowledge beyond anything the Church of the Holy Light has ever revealed to us. One can cross the divide between light and void. One can pull strands from each side and weave a tapestry of day and night. Of course, there are consequences. There always are when walking in the shadows. By the time of the Second War, Natalie Selene had learned how to wield shadow magic from Xal'atath. She had taught her dangerous arts to other worshippers of the light and rallied them against the Horde. Selene and her followers waged their war in secret, hunting down orcs across the human kingdoms. Xal'atath continued whispering in Selene's mind, slowly unraveling her sanity. Despite her noble intentions, she became more and more obsessed with the blade and the mysteries of the void. And so did Selene's companions. They were overzealous in their campaign against the orcs, putting innocent lives at risk. Some strayed too far into shadow, forsaking the light completely. Though Selene urged her followers to use caution, her calls were ignored and even treated with suspicion. It is unclear exactly what happened to the former bishop, but some sources state that Xal'atath incited rebellion among her allies. It convinced them that Selene was holding them back from their true potential, holding back knowledge and power that they could have if they killed her. In the dead of night, the conspirators murdered Selene and then took Xal'atath for themselves. For years, the Kirin Tor Magi in Dalaran had watched Natalie Selene, greatly troubled by her dark teachings. After her death, they set out to scour her writings from history. Magi picked through the villages and cities Selene had traveled, gathering up every scroll and tome she had penned. The Kirin Tor had these writings in Dalaran, hid these writings in Dalaran, hoping that would be the end of Selene's dangerous brand of magic. Yet despite their efforts, they could not bury the doctrine of balance she had preached. In the years to come, others would take up her teachings and devote themselves to the light and the void. The Magi also knew of Xal'atath, but they never found it. Like Selene's teachings, the blade would not simply fade away. It had more minds to twist, more pawns to use, and more innocence to terrorize. And so it became our weapon. Because, of course, it's fine that we are wielding this type of weapon, right? There's nothing wrong with this. So now that I've read up on some of the lore of this weapon for you guys, though she already provided one of the quotes, let me go ahead and read to you some of the quotes that this weapon provides. And these quotes can happen either when you're in a specific location or if you're going to encounter a specific enemy. So it actually kind of encouraged you to play as a Shadow Priest when you would do dungeons or raids, so you could get all the possible quotes. And there are also some funny interactions here that I want to point out for you. One in particular that is really funny and telling. Netherlight Temple, which is where we are now. The walls between realms are thin here, so easy to tear open. Do you know what would happen if true shadow and light would meet here? I know the Naru consider us horrors to be resisted. We do not share this view. They are merely beloved brethren that lost the true path. They will return to their masters. In time. Do the Naru speak of the eternal conflict? That the entire history of your world is but a fraction of the time that has passed? The research into the void here is commendable, but ultimately futile. How could you possibly understand what the Titans did not? She also has some others that happen in gameplay, like after being stunned. Enjoy that? Or a short chuckle. After killing something, did you feel it cease to exist? Every little death helps. Boring. When you do the Assault on Violet Hold, and if you face... In fact, I'll just go ahead and use the Adventure Guide to kind of help emphasize some of this. Let's go to Legion. Violet Hold. Let's see. When you face Blood Princess Thelina, this is the daughter of Queen Lanathel, who we faced in Icecrown Citadel. She's been locked inside. Again, she's the daughter of Lanathel from Icecrown Citadel, just to reemphasize that. So Xal'atath says, her mother was more impressive. This one's hunger is uncontrollable, and her tactics overused. An easy target. When you face Mind Flayer Karj, for this idiotic pustule of N'Zoth to have lived so long, it does little to refute my opinion of this world's new owners. When you face Maleficent Manastorm, how far the Manastorms have fallen, relying on crude machines and weak arcane wizardry did them no favors. Still, they had their uses. When you face Fell Lord Betrug, this guy here, really? These thugs of Sargeras are so interchangeable. This one is good with his axe. How unique. When you go to Neltharion's lair and face Olrog Crag Shaper, though he is not one of our servants, he has heard our whispers. They darkened him forever. When you face Dargrul, oops, it reloaded the page. Hold on, it does it sometimes. Wowhead just sometimes it's like, oh, an unexpected error happened. It's annoying. A beast of stone, who ignorantly throws around power he barely controls. He should be put down before he ruins our plans. In Blackrook Hold, when you face Ilsana Ravencrest, so much fury in this soul, it will be a good harvest. When you face Lord Ravencrest, another tortured soul, long overdue for oblivion. I am more interested in his advisor, though, who is Latosius. In Darkheart Thicket, when you face Archdruid Gladalis, another mind-warped servant of Xavius. A druid should have better control over his own mind, don't you think? When you face the Shade of Xavius, Xavius's tricks are cunning. Why reveal yourself when you can control from afar? In the Eye of Azara, when you face Lady Hatecoil, it is possible N'Zoth may be responsible for her form, but her arrogance is all her own. When you face the Wrath of Bajara, behold, the wasted power of the Titans before you, done in their name no less. Alright, this next one's really good. The Halls of Valor. When you face God King Skovald, Skovald seeks to join the ranks of the Destroyers, unaware that so many of those who dare are betrayed. When you're in the Hall of Glory, it is ironic that the weakest of us may be the ultimate victor. Cthulhu, Yogg-Saron, Y'Shaarj, and, well, only one would remain to consume the world. That was always meant to be. Odin. This is the one I was referring to. This is great. So she says, Odin was a great enemy until his own arrogance proved his undoing. You should ask him if he's considered Loken's final words to him. Go ahead. And so you get an option to actually speak with Odin. And he says, You've an ill wind about you, priest. And you get a dialogue option that says, Have you considered Loken's final words to you? And his response is, How would you dare mock my imprisonment? Then receive Loken's punishment in his stead? And he kills you. He kills you on the spot. An insta-kill. And this is not the only time that Xal'atath will actually tell you to do something that gets you killed. There's a bit of a trend here with Xal'atath. That's the one that I just found very amusing. And there are videos of this that you can... In fact, there's a link here on the site for you to see a video of him reacting that way. In the Vault of the Wardens, when you face Tirathon Southeril, another fool who believed Illidan's lies of sacrifice and righteousness, tormented, he turns on everyone. When you face Glacier, this one is old, but still not one of the first. These creatures were too hungry for magic to obey our masters, though they still prove useful from time to time. And when you face Cordana Fellsong, when do you think she turned? Centuries ago? She hides her hunger for power behind a cloak of suffering and righteousness. Does make me wonder whether or not Xal'atath is saying that she actually had already turned before Warlords. Because Warlords was pretty much when she was introduced. But had she already turned before that? That's the question. When you go to the Maw of Souls, and you face Yimiron, Yimiron was a fine tool. He did more to spread the blessing of flesh than any other of his kind. When you face Harboron, it was thought his kind was incorruptible. A lesson from my brothers, I suppose. And when you face Helia, Loken did fine work turning her. But in truth, Odin's arrogance takes most of the credit. Ah, it did again. This is going to be annoying to deal with. Okay. When you go to the Archway and you face Ivanir, do you see it? The poor host cannot be saved, only put down. When you face General Zakal, another nameless brute of Sargeras pretending to aid these elves. Little do they know their fate. When you go to the Court of Stars, and you face Advisor Melandris, the recruitment of the Eridar was quite a win for Sargeras. He desperately needed more intelligence in his war host. When you face Talajay Flamewreath, a traitor to this world and to his kind, his end was never in question, only who deliver it. When you go to the Cathedral of Eternal Night, and you face Thrashbite. A legion brute obliterating priceless knowledge. Imagine that. When you face Mephistroth, long has this one been a blight upon your world. Not all his schemes came to fruition, but those that did caused untold ruin. Now here's another interesting one. The seat of the Triumvirate. Because, of course, there's a lot of void in this dungeon. So just when you go there, this one shows promise. The whispers lure her towards her fate. Obviously referring to Illyria. When you face Lura, oh, now this is true beauty. At least one of the mortals in your midst can appreciate what it offers. After the cutscene where Illyria is transformed by what remained of Lura, the caterpillar has become the butterfly. She is all but ours now. When you go into the raids, the Emerald Nightmare, when you face Nythendra, a corrupted corpse of a dragon, how dangerous could that be? And the second quote, a great dragon bent to the will of Xavius, who serves the god of the deep. Instead of breathing life, she consumes all around her. When you face Il'gynoth, which of course is, well, you can imagine it's quite an interesting thing, considering that this guy also whispers to you and has some interesting quotes and whispers himself. She says, it appears the prison of N'Zoth is not as strong as it once was. What you see is a tiny growth of the behemoth that may yet consume your world. When you face Alarinth Renferal, another seed of corruption planted in death, an unquiet spirit will wander in anger and grow in pain, easy prey for the god of the deep. When you face Ursoc, another defender of the Titans brought low. Every death makes it easier. Perhaps now his misery will end, though I doubt it. When you face the Dragons of Nightmare, corrupting the Guardians of the Dream is a bold move, but Xavius may be overreaching. He would be better off quietly spreading the Nightmare's influence instead of raising such alarm. When you face Cenarius, Xavius uses the power of his new master well. Warping the mind of a demigod is no mean feat. There's a couple of quotes here. One for Xavius and another for after you beat Xavius and you interact with something. Let me read the first one. Xavius, running from one master to the next, scrambling for power, yet defeated again and again. The god of the deep picks a poor champion. Of course, it reloads as I'm reading that. Or is there something else at play? Now, the next quote is when, after you defeat Xavius and you're in the dream, you'll see the spirit of Ysera, and Ysera is pointing into a cave. If you go into the cave, there is a remnant of the void there. Now, with any other class or any other spec, there's really nothing else you get from that. You just see it, and you can interact with it. But if you interact with it with Xal'atath, she says, almost completely gone, as if it never existed. But the rift is deep and vast, and somewhere down there, it stirs. Something has changed. The last prison weakens. We must prepare. Kind of an obvious on-the-nose implication that the prison of N'Zoth is weakening. hinting that, of course, we're going to be getting ready to face N'Zoth. I wouldn't be surprised if it's at the end of BFA. If he ends up being the final boss, kind of similar to how we faced Cthulhu at the end of Vanilla. We didn't face Yogg-Saron at the end of Wrath, because obviously that deserved to go to the Lich King. Though if it wasn't around the Lich King, I guarantee you Yogg-Saron would have been the final boss of that expansion. And then, in a manner of speaking, Yasharaj at the end of Pandaria, though it was really Garrosh using what was left of Yasharaj. So now, when we go to the Nighthold, when you face Scorpyron, an interesting mutation of an ancient species. Its shell is nearly impregnable. Nearly. When you face Spellblade Aluriel, such arrogance, even for a long-lived elf. The taste of her life force is exquisite. When you face Croesus, an interesting amalgamation of fell species. I wonder, are there more of its kind? When you face Star Augur Atreus, I long for the day our masters can truly pass into this realm. You have only seen fragments, shadows, the faintest of echoes. Ask the ethereals what one of these manifestations are capable of. When you face Elisande, she claims to know the future, but those who have lived far longer than her know the truth. Her desperate bid to remain in control dooms her people. When you face Gul'dan, long has this one's time been coming. A true servant of the fallen Titan, he seeks the doom of all things, as if that would really save them from the void. When you go to the Tomb of Sargeras, and you face Goroth, from birth, pit lords are oversized and stupid. Somehow the Legion manages to magnify both traits. When you face the Sisters of the Moon, you get another funny interaction. It refreshed again. So there's a quote that is, I do so enjoy seeing the shrine of a great enemy profaned by the spirits of its own worshippers. Then she says something else which also prompts an interaction. A remnant of power lingers in this broken temple. It must be ours. Come, enter the circle and take it. So this triggers after defeating them, or it can, and attempting to absorb Ilune's power will kill you. And then she says, my mistake. It seems the upstart, air quotes, goddess, still holds sway here. Oh well. I like how she just goes, oh well, after it kills you. When you face Mistress Sazine, I hope I say that right, Sazine, at times it seems the Naga beg for scraps from the Legion's table, but the queen they serve wants far more than that. When you face the desolate host, so much death here, so much power. The haughty elves of old had such regard for their own spirits, such a delicious indignity. When you face the Maiden of Vigilance, invaders messily corrupting other invaders. Typical. Far more useful to coax them along the proper path, don't you think? When you face the fallen Avatar, let me guide you as you battle this vessel. Though it retains but a fraction of the fallen Titan's power, you will not survive its onslaught without my expertise. When you face Kil'jaeden, she has two comments. One before, one after you beat him. The first, you must face the deceiver on his own ground, where he is vulnerable. Come, let us taste his soul. And after you beat Kil'jaeden, I can feel the pulse of your world quickening. Soon, all will be drenched in its lifeblood. Just to re-clarify, she said she could feel the pulse of the heart of Azeroth quickening. Like when we went there with Magni, and he introduced that to us. And Antorus. So much effort. So much bluster. Only to delay the inevitable victory of their betters. When you face the Gorathi Worldbreaker, imagine this machinery infused with our power. Interesting. When you face Veramothras, what a disappointment. He squandered his potential by backing the wrong side. When you face the Coven of Shivara, these pretenders play at whispering madness. Amateurs. I should demonstrate proper technique. Refreshed again. When you face Agramar, this one would make an excellent champion for our cause. Perhaps he can yet be turned? And when you get to the seat of the Pantheon, long have we sought entry into this realm. To think we have a mortal to thank for giving us our foothold. Your service will be remembered. Now, there are other quotes here for when you go to certain locations. When you take her to High Mountain, the fallen aspect's lair is near. He was the strongest of them, and yet the easiest one for us to corrupt. She also says, the Tauren here are remarkably resilient to corruption, considering their origins. When you go to Val'Sharah, to see Yogg-Saron's nightmare in full bloom fills me with jealousy and some pride. And she says, here you will see why the Legion's invasion is ultimately futile. All can be corrupted, dreams and demons alike. When you go to Azuna, the dragons are weak here. You would do well to exploit this fact. The Legion burrows deep here. If they burrow deeper, they may not like what they find. And disaster abounds here. Elf ruins filled with unquiet souls, ripe for harvest. When you go to Stormheim, do not be impressed by tall icons of the Titans which stand here. The towers of sacrifice in Ny'alotha dwarf these pathetic temples. And the spawn of the Titans infest this area. Despite our gift of the flesh, they still worship these false gods. When you go to Helheim, Helya and her cult are strong here. So close to the truth, yet so far. When you go to Suramar, this city of the elves pales in comparison to the sleeping city. Second quote, Suramar, its noble citizens, greedily slurping at their world's very lifeblood. And the third quote, the fallen elves cower behind their wall. They know no other way. When you take her to the Broken Shore, that fell edifice towering over this land. Oh, of course, it refreshes again. And there's a number of quotes here for the Broken Shore. Towering over this land pales in comparison to the grandeur of what stood here long ago. Your allies consider me a bad influence, yet all I've ever done is speed you along the path you chose. Is this not the sight of what you mortals consider your greatest humiliation? I hope you fare better this time. This conflict is but a shadow of an ancient war that predated the meddling of the Titans. Infinite armies clashed in ceaseless battle. But I'm sure your little war is impressive, in its own way. This was always a place of power. Egwene was drawn here, and before her, the elves, and before them, the trolls, and before them... That's where the quote ends. I don't believe these lands have seen such carnage since the battle for Xal'atath, such a long time ago. And the last broken short quote. It was here in ages past that the god of the deep lost a great battle to the god of the 7 heads. But as was so often the case, even defeat ultimately worked in Xal'atath's favor. Other locations. The god of the deep writhes in his prison, breaking free ever so slowly. You should hurry and defeat the fallen titan. There are greater battles yet to fight. The nearness of the void here is comforting. I was used in a sacrifice of many creatures in a place like this. Every death brought us closer to the complete corruption of this world. Oh, wait, this is the quote that you heard earlier. You've gathered quite the group of followers. A powerful dragon could be a powerful tool. Alas, gone are the days of Galakrond. These 3 have enjoyed the secret favor of Xal'atath for long enough. Sadly, their breathing days are done. The elves here are desperate to save themselves from the nightmare, while the demons seek to harness its might. Both will fail. You were a good choice. No, this is what she says after you beat all the raids in a single expansion. You were a good choice. No other wielder has murdered their way across a continent like you have. I admire your endurance. It took ages to make my return to the surface after the Sundering. The Naga can be so possessive of artifacts. This trifling skirmish is little more than a distraction. The true battle draws nigh as the circle nears completion. This land has seen so much upheaval. The cataclysm, the sundering, the scouring. You really have no idea. We may face... Oh my gosh. Another refresh. Let's see. We're almost done. We may face some of my brethren in this conflict. A prospect that delights me. Their power will be mine. They will pay for what was done to me long ago. She says that in Orgrimmar, by the way. This next quote she says if you take her to Blackrock Mountain. I remember the Dark Iron fondly. Modgood was so easy to influence. Such was her fate. Imagine her fury when I abandoned her to the Wildhammer at the worst time. I can be very easy to lose. Remember that. When you take her to the Sunwell Plateau, the light would have your kind remain obedient and stagnant. I offer the gifts of freedom and strength. I hope you remember my kindness. When you take to bring her aboard the Vindicar, such potential here, but all of it wasted on a doomed crusade. In mockery, can you taste it on the air? The sweet nectar of madness? This place is swollen with it. Before you face Archon, watch now as a weak mind gives way to darkness. And when you interact with Locust Walker, remember him, the guy who was trying to help Illyria learn more about how to control the power of the Void? He flaunts his defiance of the shadows. Arrogance will be his undoing. And that is all the recorded quotes. There are also times where she will either chuckle or laugh at certain things that happen, such as if you take her on the Class Hall Mount quest to get this, the Seeker, and they talk about, corruption, the thing is corrupt and we must destroy it. She'll chuckle. She'll just laugh about it. There'll be various times where she'll just laugh about something. So that is all the quotes for Xal'atath. So, in case you never got a chance to go through Legion as a Shadow Priest, there you go. You now know what you missed out on. And hopefully I will be able to get that secret appearance for the dagger at some point. As you can see, it's possible to get it on any difficulty to get it to drop from Il'gynoth, the Heart of Corruption. So, that is what I've got in terms of the lore and the quotes when it comes to Xal'atath for the Shadow Priest. There are two other artifacts that have this kind of dialogue as well as lore. One is the Demonology Warlock, the Thal'kiel, the Skull of Manari, and the Arcane Mage artifact, the Staff Aluneth. I'll be doing separate videos on each of those. Probably not right away because my throat is starting to feel a little worn out from all that talking. So I will see you guys next time for those other artifact videos. Stay tuned.